What is going on, my salty home gymmers? Welcome back to the channel, and today we are going to be continuing our budget all-in-one Smith machine tournament. If you haven't been following along, if you're just here for the comparison, that's fine. And if you'd like to go back and look at those other videos and see the other comparisons we've done and the other reviews we've done for this tournament, there is a playlist for that if you check on the channel. So real quick, I'm going to run down the rules one more time because I am eager to get to the comparing, which is the real reason we're here. They have to be an all-in-one with the Smith machine. That means cable, that means front rack, that means, yes, it has to include a Smith machine. All machines are dual separated adjustable cables. That means two separate cables. They don't converge in the middle. They operate separately, and they must be plate loaded. Well, I guess they don't have to be, but they're gonna be, because our next criteria is $1,000 to $1,500 is the price range these have to meet in. If they're a penny over or a penny under, they can't be compared in this series. And that's why I said all these racks are gonna be plate loaded racks, because if you find me two decent racks worth talking about that have a actual plate stack on them that meets this criteria, that has a Smith machine, that has a cable, that has a front rack, and has a plate stack, well, my friend, you just go ahead and buy it. Bypass this series. And my last rule is flash sales do not count. Now, this isn't to be confused with sale prices. And what I mean by that is a lot of companies, they advertise sales that just aren't really sales. You know, you look at their website and you see the price and it's got one number slashed out and then the actual price. Sometimes those prices have just been the standard price of this machine for like a year, and they just kind of appear like they're on sale. Now, flash sales, on the other hand, which is the sales that don't count in this series, is things like New Year sales, Christmas sales, a 1 week flash sale, Labor Day, things of that nature. Those aren't going to count. This must be a consistent price of the rack for quite some time. All right, now that we've explained all the criteria, let's talk about our contenders in this round, which is two companies that are pretty big hitters in the budget home gym equipment arena. Our first contender is going to be Ritfit with their M1 Pro, and this machine's basically the M1 with aluminum pulleys, but we'll get more into that later. The other contender is the Major Fitness B52, not to be confused with the B52 Pro. This is the B52 Standard. Both of these machines fall within all of the criteria just mentioned. I'm going to compare them into multiple different categories, and I'm going to tell you which one is the stronger buy for each of those categories. And I'm going to pick one at the end to be the overall winner and advance in our tournament and go into the finals and face our other contender in the finals, which is the Megastar P107. But without further ado, let me talk about the first category, which is size and weight. Now, obviously, this category is going to have no winner. Neither one's really better or worse, but I guess if you could make one better or worse, if you like your equipment heavier, which I kind of do, the B52 is going to be the heavier rack, coming in at 410.1 pounds. The M1 Pro's weight, which is 339 pounds, making it the lighter of the two, which is interesting but not surprising due to some other specs we'll get into later. But the interesting part is that the M1 is actually larger, coming in at a total height, including the pull-up bar, at 85.3 inches. And the rack width, including the Smith bar, is 79.1 inches, and that's a total width. Any other measurements you would like can be paused and referenced here, but it is going to be the significantly larger rack between the two. The B52 stands at a height at 82.6 inches, and it has a total width of 78.7 inches. Now, I did say significant difference, but both of these machines are a little on the smaller side, and a few inches difference on the width and height of these racks might not seem like a lot, but when you see them in person, it actually kind of is a lot. I would compare it to being a person that's like, say, 5'11", standing next to a person that's 6'2", 6'3". It might not seem a lot when you break it down in inches, but when you're standing in front of it, you're gonna say, wow, this is definitely the taller one. The B52 though is honestly just made for those small space, low ceiling people. I know we don't have every Smith machine all in one in this price range with this criteria in this lineup. That would just be ridiculous. There's so many, but as far as I know, the B52 is probably gonna be the smallest in this arena, that being all-in-one Smith machines in this price range. And I'll also give you some pause time here to take a look at the rest of the specs on this one as well. Now let's talk about our first actual comparison category that's going to have an actual winner, and that is going to be the assembly. Now, neither one of these machines are very difficult to assemble. The B52 is definitely going to be the more difficult to assemble. It's not that hard, but it is a lot more time consuming, and it is a little easier to mess up on your way to completion. There was a step or two where I had to go back, disassemble and reassemble, and you know, I've assembled a lot of these machines, so Again, not difficult. I think one person should be able to do it even if they don't have experience putting together one of these things. But this is a tough category for the B52 because the M1 Pro is just so incredibly simple to put together. It is made for beginner assemblies. And obviously this is something that impressed me with the video that we did on the M1 Pro. Everything is just laid out so organized. The posts tell you which end goes up, which end faces where. All the bolts are not just thrown in one big package and say, here are the sizes, reference the instructions to where they go. They're literally laid out step by step by step, so you can follow along with the instructions. Okay, this is step one. These are all my step one bolts. The Smith machine is already pretty much assembled for you. You just have to put the bar on. It's just probably the easiest rack I ever put together. So I'm gonna have to go with the Ritfit M1 Pro in this category. Ritfit's almost cheating. Now, my next category is the durability. And speaking of almost cheating in this criteria is 2x3 posts. Now, both of these machines are the same gauge steel. They're about 14 gauge steel all the way around. In fact, all of our contenders in this are 14 gauge steel. In this area with this criteria that we've mentioned repeatedly, 1,000 to 1,500, Smith machine all in one, you're not really gonna find any racks that have 4x4 posts. You're gonna find a lot of 2x3s and 2x2s. So as far as durability goes, most of your 2x3s are just gonna hold up better than your 2x2 racks. It's just because they have a bigger post and they're more sound. To be honest with you though, the B52 is just kind of a better made structure. The Ritfit holds its own on stability. It's not a big shaky rack, but the B52 is just gonna be a little more sound with those 2x3 inch posts. I don't think I have to tell you that. That should just kind of be common sense. However, there is another thing that I'm gonna say about its durability. The B52 has a better coating than the M1 Pro, if you care about that sort of thing. Now, I'm not saying that the M1 Pro will just scratch up in no time, but you know, when I received the M1 Pro, it did have a significant amount of scratches. A lot of the attachments I noticed tend to chip up extremely easy. The Major Fitness B52 is definitely gonna take it in the durability category. And like I said, not to knock the M1 Pro's durability, I think it's a fine machine for the home gym. Listen, none of these machines are gonna be like commercial equipment for the home gym. These are home gym machines. So both serve that purpose, but the B52 is gonna take it home in that category. And it's an extremely important category, so that one's probably gonna hold a few more points in the long run here. Now we're gonna talk about the front rack for our next category, but the front rack kind of blends a little bit with the durability end of things. Like I said, your front posts on the B52 are 2x3 and your front posts for the M1 Pro are 2x2. So take a wild guess of who's gonna have the stronger rack. Neither one of them have bad racks. I didn't have any issues with either one. Both of them are pretty dent proof, pretty okay in that category. Now the M1 Pro does come with 13 1-inch holes and the B52 comes with 15 1-inch holes, which is a little surprising that the B52 comes with more of those 1-inch holes. A little closer together because it is the shorter rack as we talked about earlier. The front rack attachments specifically, not to be confused with cable attachments, which is completely separate in this conversation. The front rack attachments, the B52 attachments, are going to be a little better than the M1 Pro attachments. As I said earlier, the front rack attachments, and like I said, I'm speaking specifically about the front rack attachments only, on the M1 are just, they're okay, they're not bad, they're completely usable, they're the standard. They do tend to chip up a little bit, and that did kind of annoy me a little. And like we've learned, I'm a stickler about this sort of thing. And I most definitely preferred the attachments for the B52, for the front rack at least. So I am gonna give the front rack category to Major Fitness and the B52. All right, moving on down the line with the next category, and that is the cable. Both of these machines are rocking a 2-to-1 ratio. That means you're gonna feel about half the weight you put on it, which means both of these machines' cables are big plate eaters, but 2-to-1 just seems to be the standard of the home gym equipment industry now. But the major difference here that should be glaring you in the face is that the M1 Pro is the Pro because it has aluminum pulleys, and the B52 standard model has nylon pulleys. A lot of these machines that we put in this tournament, I tried to add different features, you know, that I could, like such as jammer arms, aluminum pulleys, things of that nature. I tried to add those into my package just to get everything out of my machine under $1,500. The package that I chose for the M1 is the M1 Pro, which comes with the aluminum pulleys. And gotta tell you, great cable. But guess who else has a great cable? The B52, even with its nylon pulleys. There's really no big difference here. Both of these are just smooth as butter. Both of these have phenomenal cables. I feel like both of these cables are great. They pull smooth. You don't feel any travel in the cables, and they just feel great. I feel like the weight is right on the other side when I'm pulling on both of these machines. I just think they're neck and neck with each other, too close to call. So I am gonna call the cable category a draw. And I know you're probably thinking, well, the M1 Pro has aluminum pulleys. Why isn't that smoother? And you know, we've talked about this before. Yes, it feels smooth, but just because a machine has aluminum pulleys doesn't mean it's automatically just, boom, gonna be the smoothest thing in the world. You have to have a good structure and a good travel in that cable and a good pulley placement, etc., in order for it to be smooth in the first place. Slapping aluminum pulleys on a machine just doesn't automatically make it smoother. With that being said, M1 Pro's cable is just absolutely smooth as butter either way, but it just doesn't mean that the B52's is not, just because it has nylon pulleys. Aluminum pulleys are just all the rage now. Every home gym manufacturer is putting aluminum pulleys on everything now. That's like a new thing. Doesn't mean nylon pulleys don't make a smooth cable. Both of these cables are phenomenal, and I'm gonna give it to both of them as a tie. And our next column is gonna be the Smith machine. And this is a very, very important category. Well, to be honest, my result might disappoint you here too. But I wanna start by talking about the M1. The M1 Pro just impressed me so much. So much so that I even said on my video, I didn't have like the highest expectations ever for the M1 Pro. I thought it was gonna be less of a contender in this tournament than it was. And that's not a knock at Ritfit. It's just from what I saw in the picture of the machine compared to something like the B52. But I'm gonna tell you something. The M1 Pro holds its own in a lot of categories, and one is the Smith machine, which I definitely didn't call. The Smith machine bar on the M1 Pro is fantastic. It's nice, thick, has good knurling, has good plate horns, and it goes all the way to the ground, all the way to the top of the machine. And it's smooth, very smooth. The bar seems like it's gonna hold up. Both of its linear bearings are nice. They're very well made compared to a couple other companies we've talked about. So yeah, I was extremely impressed with it. But again, the B52, it also has a great Smith machine. It also has a durable bar, it also has great knurling, and it's also nice and thick and feels like I'm holding a barbell and not like something that's just an attachment for a machine like some of the other companies we've talked about. And its bearings also seem pretty well made. And it's also not the most difficult thing to assemble, just like we talked about with the M1 Pro in our video. The biggest difference that I see between these two machines is the way the guide rods are set up. The guide rods on both of these hold up. They don't rattle a ton. They're both drilled through the top and held into place very securely. But the B52 Smith machine guide rods sit kind of on a ledge, which takes your stopping point of your Smith machine off the ground about a foot. And the M1 Pro, however, goes all the way to the ground. So if you wanted to do deadlifts or something like that, it would be better for you to do on the M1 Pro. So that's good about the M1 Pro, but however, with that, good with the bad, think about this machine's guide rods versus this machine. Both the guide rods are about the same thickness. The B52 rack itself is a little shorter, and the guide rods come off the ground about a foot, which makes them a significantly smaller guide rod, which also makes them more stable, a little more stable. Now, both of these machines have a solid Smith machine, as I've said. They both have solid guide rods, and there's no rattle there, there's no instability. But for the reason I just explained, the B52 is just gonna feel slightly stiffer than the M1 Pro. With that being said, just due to the very slight differences that have kind of advantages for both machines, I'm gonna have to give this one a tie as well. It just doesn't seem fair. Both of these Smith machines are just fantastic compared to the other ones we've talked about, so I'm gonna give it to both of them. Now the features and extras. It's just gonna go to Ritfit. There's no other way to swing that one. We talked about this in my video a lot. The Ritfit attachments that come with the M1 Pro are just fantastic. Some of them, I would dare say, are like commercial grade solid steel. And you get a lot of them. You get a lot of options here for cable attachments, which is what I'm talking about specifically. I'm not talking about front rack attachments. We already talked about this, but as far as cable attachments, the Ritfit M1 Pro just comes with more of them, and they're honestly just, well, they're better than the B52s. Now, the B52's cable attachments are there, and they are like the standard here. They're about the same quality we're just used to seeing. They just didn't wow me like the Ritfit M1's attachment did. And speaking specifically about the M1 Pro, because I do believe it is the one that comes with this extra set of steel attachments that are just very nice. But this brings me to my next category, which is, again, one of those categories that blurs with the last one, and that is the storage. Just being completely transparent here, neither one of these machines here stand out as far as storage goes. But if I have to give it to one, I'm probably gonna give it to the Ritfit M1. It's not by a landslide though, and let me explain why. And I'm gonna start by telling you what the B52 has as far as storage, which is not much. They have about 4 hooks for your cable attachments, and they have 4 plate horns on the back for your plate storage. And that's it. But they're pretty strong plate horns. They're pretty decently made. But the Ritfit has 6 plate horns on the back, 4 hooks in the back for your cable attachment storage, and they have multiple barbell storage spots in the back for your barbells, which I highly, highly, highly appreciate. But with that being said, like I said, good with the bad here, the plate storage horns on the back of this, I just grew to be less and less impressed with. They're a little on the janky side. It's not a huge downfall of this rack, but they just don't seem like they're all that strong. The B52s feels a lot stronger. So I am gonna give the storage category to the Ritfit M1, but it's by this much. And now that I'm just heading towards my conclusion here, I'm just gonna tell you certain categories, for obvious reasons, are just more important than others. Such as things like, to me, durability and stability is a more important category than, say, features and extras, because I can just go buy rack attachments later. But if my rack doesn't hold up, I'm out either way. Again, these 2 machines are just great machines. Both of these racks, you're able to upgrade to plate stacks and other features like that. Both of these machines are just really, really great buys in this particular price range. I really wish I could make everyone a winner, but unfortunately I can't. So let me talk about the price real quick before I decide who I'm going with overall. The B52 comes in at $1,499.99. The M1 Pro comes in at $1,299.99, which is a significant price difference from the B52. And another thing I notice about the M1 Pro is that it goes on sale a ton. There is a ton of flash sales with this machine, especially on Amazon. I think the most recent flash sale I saw is the M1 Standard, not to be confused with the M1 Pro, but the M1 Standard with just your nylon pulleys. It was like 800 bucks on there. So if you're interested in just the budget option and just saving your money, I'd say the M1 Pro is a great pick, but unfortunately value doesn't make the win in this tournament. I want the best overall in this specific criteria, and the B52 is gonna take it here and it's gonna advance to the next round. I'm just always so impressed with Major Fitness's, like I said, quality control and quality machines they put out for a very, very, very budget price. But I also wanna thank both of these companies for being humble enough to open themselves up enough to be harshly critiqued like this. It says a lot about all the brands in this tournament, that they have so much confidence in their product that they're willing to push it forward and say, hey, compare this to what's out there. And let me tell you, both of these machines, very impressed with for the price. Very great deals. But that means we only have 1 round left, and it is the finals. And it is gonna be the Megastar P107 being compared to the Major Fitness B52. This next comparison is gonna be even tighter than this one. So stick around for that. Don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.